podcast brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. This is a Warhammer 40k podcast where we analyse the meta and help develop strategies to help you become a competitive 40k player. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and it is our mission to raise the standard of the game both on and off the tabletop. This podcast is brought to you by the Vanguard Tactics Academy, the only online coaching course for Warhammer 40k. In the Vanguard Tactics Academy takes you through everything you need to know about 40k, from how to write the optimal army list for your faction, to advanced tactics on the tabletop and advanced game theory. We'll also teach you our step-by-step process to prepare you for any tournament. And the VT Academy will not only help you win more games in the right spirit of the game, but also help you get more value and enjoyment from your hobby. But will also help you feel more confident and comfortable every single time you step up to the table. Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 6, and we have a really interesting and valuable lesson for you guys today. Now, what I'm actually going to do is, this is the part 3 of the how to pick your secondaries. Now, if you haven't done so already, go back and listen to part 1 where we cover just the core main secondaries and our top tips for picking them. Then in part 2 we cover the mission specific ones and combinations you can sort of interact between that, and then looking at different armies and playstyles. But in this part, now what we're going to do is we're going to pair off Joe versus Jack in a theory debate in terms of who is going to win this game based on just solely picking secondaries. So we're going to cover the mission. I'm then going to go over each of their lists, and we're going to do this in secret. So Joe and Jack have no idea what each other are about to say when they come to picking their secondaries, but it's going to be really, really interesting. So you're going to get an in-depth and much better understanding of what people are thinking about when they get to the tabletop when they're about to play you. So I think this is a really, really good, valuable podcast that you're really going to enjoy. Share it with your friends, and remember, if you do get any questions, please let us know, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or any of our social media platforms. So I really, really hope you enjoy this one, and now over to that show. So as I mentioned before, guys, this is your final part of this secondary episode series. So in episode 1 we went over each of the primary and core secondaries. Then in the next episode, in part 2, we then cover all of the mission specific one and some of the combos that you can put together. So in this third part, I'm going to pair off Jack versus Joe. So Jack, how you doing?
I'm very well, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, mate, I'm doing well, thanks. And Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm calling in this one instead, so hopefully the audio quality is just as good as usual.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
If not, you're going to have a long slog ahead of you of editing until it's good enough. So that's the standard that we want in Vanguard Tactics. Anyway, so obviously I'm going to be pitting both of you against each other. Now, Joe and Jack, you've shown and seen each other's lists, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, great. Yep. So you've how this is going to work, guys, is Jack and Joe have shared each other's lists. This is role play time. We've just got to the table. Joe and Jack, they've met for the first time, and they're now looking at each other's lists. So they know that they are on the mission called Overrun. And I'm going to go over the mission brief shortly, but the mission is Overrun. This is from the Grand Tournament 2020 Strike Force book. And if you want to see the mission and also the terrain setup that these guys are going to be role-playing on, then you can head over to our blog post where you can see both of these guys' lists, the mission and also the terrain setup, because that might be influencing their picks. I'm then going to ask Jack and Joe what their predictions are that their opponent will be taking against them, and I'm going to do each of these interviews separately, so they're not going to have a clue what's going on. So I'm going to ask Joe, for example, what he thinks Jack is going to take against him, and then what I'm going to do is ask Joe to take and tell me and us what his secondary picks are. I'm then going to do the same with Jack, and then we're going to see how correct they were in terms of their predictions, along with a rough game plan as to how they would go about conducting themselves in this game to try and bring about a win on the point so that they can manage just the scoreboard, and whoever basically presents us with the best debate is going to win this game. I'm going to be rolling off to see who goes first when we get to that stage, but we'll also go through strategic reserves and all of that stuff, so it's kind of like the pre-game role play. So Jack and Joe, you both ready?
Always.
Ready to go.
Born ready. Okay, so I'm going to start this off with Jack. So, Joe, I'm going to ask you now to please turn off your headphones so you cannot hear a thing what's going on, and then I'm going to WhatsApp you when I want you to join back on this call, okay?
All right, then.
Right, we'll see you in a minute, Joe.
See you in a minute.
Right, Jack, you ready?
I am ready. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, tell the listeners what army list you are playing. Give us a rundown.
So I'm for this. I'm running Dark Angels in a single battalion. So it's 2 Ravenwing Talamasters, Samael on his jet bike. Then I have 2 units of Incursors, 5 man, and a unit of 5 man scouts. Then into elites, I've got the Deathwing Ancient with the 5 at Feel No Pain banner, and then 8 Deathwing Knights, and then a Ravenwing Apothecary. In fast attack, I have 5 Plasma Receptors, a 5-man Ravenwing Bike Squad with 2 Plasma Guns and a Combi Plasma, and a unit of 3 Ravenwing Land Speeders with Typhoon Missile Launchers and Heavy Bolters.
Nice, and that's a unit, isn't it? So you can take 3 of them in a squad.
Yes, I think you can take up to 5, but it's a unit of 3.
Okay, very nice.
Unit.
And is that the list, or have you got anything else?
No, that's it. My Warlord is one of the Talamasters, and I've taken Brilliant Strategist, which allows me to regen CPs and a 5-up.
You do like a good regen of a CP, don't you?
Oh, yes, and actually I got an additional Warlord trait. I can auto-deny once I get power once per game.
Very good, very good. Okay, mate, nice. So that's the list. And if you want to check out Jack's Dark Angels list, then all you need to do is head over to the blog post, which is www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/S2EP6. And you can obviously have a read of that. So, you're up against the Genestealer cult today. And the listeners shortly are going to find out exactly what Joe is running. But what do you think Joe is going to take against you in terms of secondary picks?
So, having a look through Joe's list, he's got lots of different units. So I reckon he's going to take Engage on all fronts because he's got lots of units. Some of them are quick and they can all deep strike. So I think he'll definitely be taking that. And then I think he'll take Deploy Scramblers as well because he's lots of cheap infantry, which can all deep strike. So I think he's got very good potential of doing that.
Yep. Do you think he'll go for the mission one? And the mission one is you score a number of victory points at the end of your command phase if you control 1 or more of the objective markers that are within your opponent's territory is shown on the table below. So if you control basically 1 of the objectives, you get 2 points. If you control 2 of the objectives, you get 3. And if you control all 3 of the objectives in your opponent's half of the table, then you're going to get 5. And Overrun, guys, is the one where it's basically Dawn of War deployment, and there's 1 objective in each deployment zone and then 4 in no man's land, but they're very close to each player's sort of deployment line. They're only 2 inches away from it, and each territory is basically half of the table. And remember, guys, this is a hold 2, hold 3 or more objective mission. So do you think that's going to influence? Do you think he's going to go for that one?
It could be a possibility, but I think the issue that the Genestealer cult will have is that their units aren't going to be durable enough to hold on to it to the end of the command phase. So give me an opportunity to remove anything that he puts on my objectives quite easily.
Yeah.
To be in my threat range. But I think his third one will be Raise the Banners High.
You think he'll go for Raise the Banners? Yeah,
because again, he's got lots of infantry. There's 3 objectives which you can easily raise the banners up on turn 1.
Okay. Do you think that's a good choice for him?
I think looking at his list, it's quite an aggressive, lots of combat punch in there, wants to get in my face. So I think if he puts those banners up on turn 1, and then I think he'll want to throw everything at me. And I would be looking to probably take quite a defensive stance and look to shoot them off the board. So I think that would potentially be quite a good pick to score quite a few points, because I think I'll have to sit back for turns 1, 2, maybe turn 3 to have done enough damage. Then I can only get those banners down later on in the game. I do have the pace in the list to take those banners down quite quickly if I want to. But I think I need to sit back and protect myself for the first couple of turns at least.
Because obviously you do have the Incursors and the Scouts that can start 9 inches away from his deployment line, and if you go first, you can just move them within 3 inches of those objectives, and he's not going to be able to raise those 2 banners that are in no man's land.
So I think that's definitely a consideration that he's got to take at this point of the game, pre-game. But I don't think that's in fitting with my game plan that I'm thinking for this one.
Okay, so, and that's because obviously you need to use those incursors and scouts to bubble out, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, they're going to be my screening units.
So you're not so much worried about denying him points with that tactic, because otherwise that is a really viable tactic, I think, with those incursors and scouts. But you're aware that you could do it, but you think that that would be a sort of detriment to your longer game plan, right?
Yeah, I think, I deny the banners going up on turn 1, but then I lose both units of incursors straight away, because I'll be in his deployment zone, basically. And then he'll just put the banners up on turn 2.
Yeah.
And because there's 3 near his deployment zone, he'll clear good points from it anyway. So I think it's not worth sacrificing those assets in this game just to deny that, get those banners up turn 1.
Yeah, because obviously he's going to have to throw in acolytes into those incursors to get rid of them, isn't he?
Yeah.
So if he obviously has it all depends on what he puts into strategic reserve, because I'm actually thinking right now, if he's got to clear you off with, for example, he's going to have to make a charge with 2 units of acolytes into each squad, right, of your incursors to get rid of you.
Yeah. Yep.
You can spend 2 CPs and kill him with your incursors before he gets even chance to swing.
Yes, yeah.
So actually, he's going to have to put 3 units in, and he's going to have to fight first with the unit that is the single charging unit, because you're going to easily pick up a squad of acolytes of 10 with your two CPs of interrupt combat, or for example into the scouts or whatever, which then means, depending on the terrain, which these objectives are out in the open, he's going to have to leave 20 acolytes. Bear in mind you've already killed 10 of them, and now all of a sudden 20 of them are sat in no man's land. So if you go first, I think it's still a viable strategy to completely deny him of all those points.
It's definitely an option, and a lot of it depends what he starts on the board, because his whole list, I don't know what the 50% is going to start on the board and what the 50% is going to start in deep strike.
Yeah.
So
because if he's got the bikes on the table, he can move over and use the demolition charges and pick up a squad, and then just charge in another squad, and just pick that squad up, can't he?
And that's his decision as well. If he wants to raise the banners, I have not just the incursors, I've got other units. I can double move a unit of bikes across the table. So if he went first and took banners, I could move an advanced unit of bikes, shoot one unit that's raised to 1 banner, charge another, and try and get them down, kind of thing. So he's got to be wary of my pace, and I can take those banners down effectively when I want to.
Yeah. Do you think you'll be able to stop him from deploying scramblers?
No, I think I'm quite small and elite. I don't think I can screen. I won't be able to screen out the entirety of my deployment zone for long enough. So I think I've got to let him have that, but just let him have 10. I don't think it's worth trying to stop it. Mm-hmm. I think it would take too much away from what I need to do.
And then what about engaging all fronts? Is there much you can control there from him?
I think it's just good target priority. If he's only left 1 unit in 1 quarter and he can't get another unit in there to replace it next turn, then just take those opportunities while you can to deny points that way. He'll score a fair few on there, but if I can spot opportunities where he's left 1 quarter a bit light on number of units, I can look to get my firepower into that and clear out a quarter and stop him getting it in the next following turn.
Yeah, I agree with you there. When I'm playing against anyone that's got engage on all fronts, just hit 1 quarter as hard as you can, because your army's pretty much going to be in 1. So as long as you keep firing into the next one, or using units that go in, screen it, move block it, then you can just take him out of 2. Then you can really start to deny some big points. Okay, cool. So you're going to let him get the 10 points for deploy scramblers, right?
Yeah, I'm going to try and make it as hard as possible, but I don't think I'll manage to stop him on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's probably bound to get that. Engage on all fronts. How many you're going to try and cap him to?
I'm going to try and cap him to about 8.
Okay, cool, nice. Yeah, which would mean he's going to get, for 4 turns, he's going to be in 3 quarters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm assuming, because you're going to have to bubble up in screen quite well for at least 3 turns of the game with those incursors and scouts, and hopefully you can hold a quarter down to make sure he can't even get inside that one, and then just like you said, shoot him out of the next one, because GSC do not have the staying power for late game turns 4 and 5, do they, at the moment?
Yeah,
they hit hard and then suffer.
Yeah, it could be a couple of turns of 4 quarters and 1 turn of 3 quarters, I imagine, because he'll be looking to charge me into my quarter. But I think 8 is a realistic target to restrict him to.
Because he might actually struggle with turn 1 getting 1.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Because he can't deep strike in turn 1, he can only come in turn 2. So he's only going to be, especially on this deployment, if it was quarters, he could easily just move a unit left, move a unit right out of those quarters, but he has to cross 12 inches.
Yeah.
And that's if he starts that unit on the line. So, and then it needs to be wholly in that quarter, so he might not make it. So you might be able to deny him turn 1.
Yeah.
And he's probably not going to want to stretch himself too thin. So I think that's reasonable. Okay, then on banners, how many are you going to restrict him to?
So I think I'll try and restrict him to 9.
Okay. Yep.
So I think in the 3 turns of 3 banners up.
Yep.
And I think at that point I should be able to get across the board and take them all back down.
Yeah, and then just sit on them to score you the primary and deny him those banners. Yeah.
Yep.
So are you going to be wanting to go first or second if you win the roll-off, do you think?
Probably second, because playing GC and Colt's always a weird one with the blips and everything, and the ability to put additional units in reserve. So I think a turn 1, I don't think I'm going to gain too much.
Okay.
And I think for the secondaries that I've got, I don't necessarily need turn 1.
Okay. Because if you think he's going to go for raise the banners, by going in turn 5, or having the turn 5 to act as you want, you then can take him off all the end game scoring objectives.
Yes, yeah.
So you can deny him in the end game for raise the banners. So, okay, cool, nice, I like it. Yeah, solid game plan. So Jack, what are your secondaries that you're going to be taking and why? So what's your first one?
So I'm looking at grind them down.
Okay, and why is that?
I'm a quite small elite army.
Yep.
And Joe's is the complete opposite. It's got lots of small MSU units. And I plan to play this game quite defensively. So I'll be looking to protect my assets. And I've got lots of firepower in this list. So I'll be looking to easily get the kill more every turn. But I think it gets hard towards the late game. Because you won't have much left or have the ability to hide it. So I'll be aiming to get 12 points from that secondary.
12 points, okay. And again, going second is going to really play well into that.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, what's your second pick and why?
So I'm going for Assassinate.
Okay.
So
Assassinate is you get 3 points for every character killed, right?
Yeah, I just 1, 2, 3. Just double checking. 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think Joe has 7 characters.
Okay.
And 2 of those are Kelomorphs. So if he wants to use them, they need to come out and shoot me. They're short range. And lots of the other characters are needed to buff, like the big units of hybrids and the acolytes and the aberrants. So I don't think he can afford to play defensive with them. Otherwise, he'll lose too much.
Yeah, and your land speeders, I think, well, I'd be interested in your strategy, but they can obviously jump over units, can't they, and then make the characters the close enemy model.
Yeah, I can move and advance bikes and shoot and charge and stuff. I've got lots of speed to get around units. I've got lots of volume of shots to drop screens and then still have enough shots, hopefully, to then kill characters after.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, okay, cool. And how many points are you going to try and get off this?
Again, I think 12's realistic, but I think let's go with 12 because I think at a certain point you might start getting very defensive with his characters once I've started picking up the first couple.
Okay,
but I think
cool.
12, getting 4 of them is a realistic target.
Okay, and then what's your third? And tell us what the secondary is, how many points you can score, and then why you've picked it.
Okay, so I've gone for Raise the Banners.
Okay. Yep. So again, go on.
And I'm thinking again another 12 points from this.
Okay. So you put the banner up as long as there's not any infantry from the enemy or any unit actually within engagement range of it, and then if that's so, one of your infantry units can put a banner up and it's yours until it's taken down, and you get a point per banner up per turn, don't you, when you get to your command phase? And then for every one that you're holding at the end of the game, there's end game scoring as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to easily be able to get 3 banners up pretty sharpish, aren't you? Because obviously you've got 2 of them are literally 2 inches away from your deployment zone, and your scouts or incursors could easily start on them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And again, 12 points for that one?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, if all goes well, you could easily max 15 on Raise the Banners with your list, I think.
Yeah, I can't be too aggressive too early, so that's why I don't think I'll get the full 15.
Okay.
But I can certainly defend 2 objectives, so that's my 10. And then I think later on in the game, I can use those Inceptors to jump out and put banners up later on.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Because they've got the speed to do that.
So what's your rough game plan in terms of the primary? Obviously, the 6 objectives on the table. How many are you going to be looking to try and hold this game?
So I think looking at the list and my list, I'd be taking a quite defensive stance and be looking to hold the 3 objectives in my deployment zone for the entirety of the game and really build a castle around those 2 objectives. Those 3 objectives on my side of the board.
Yeah, because there is 32 inches between the 2 middle ones. Do you think you're going to be able to zone out all 3?
I might struggle to zone all 3. So if I couldn't, then I'd protect a position of 2 in the early game,
and
then
middle
look to
one,
sweep
and then
out
like the left or the right.
One on the left or the right. I just make sure I can deploy to completely zone them out of my back corner, zone out, and make sure I've secured those positions fully, and not to overextend in deployment and in the early game, because I think it's a late game for me to then take over the primary and the secondary scoring. So
what's your predictions for turn 2? How many points do you think, conservatively? Because bear in mind, Genestealer Cult hit hard 2 and 3. Where do you think you're going to score your points on the primary? Let's talk through this. So at the end of turn 2, where do you think you'll be at? 5, 10 or 15?
I think I'll be at 5.
Yep.
And I'll be looking to deny the hold more.
Okay. So you're going to try and deny him just to keep him at 10, yeah?
But I'll be looking to shoot him off I'll be looking to try and make him on two objectives as well. So I think that the plan for the first 2 turns 2 and 3 is to hold 2 and try and shoot him off to only holding 2 in return.
Okay.
So we go. I think that might be a bit of a stretch, and he probably will gain the early lead in the early game.
Yeah. Turn 3, similar sort of concept.
Yeah, turn 3 again. Wait for those deep striking units to all come in.
Yep.
And again, this is why this plays well for me going second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So once his deep strikers come down turn 3, I could then move out onto the 3rd objective, ready for my turn 4 scoring.
Yeah, and then direct your firepower onto one of his that you might be controlling.
Yeah.
So then turn 4, how many points do you think you'll pick up? 15?
I'll be looking for 15. I'll be looking to get the hold. Yeah, getting the hold more from that point.
So you're going to go 5, 5, 15, 15. So you're going to max out the primary at 40 in your prediction. And then on the secondary, you're going to aim for 36, yeah? So you're going to end up with 86 points.
Cool.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, let's... obviously, that's an interesting... We've gone through your game plan as well. We know you want to go second. It's been really interesting to find out about what secondary you think he's going to take. Is there anything else that you feel like's influenced your decision? Anything that you'd have normally gone for where you think, actually, no, I can't go for that against this mission?
I think a key thing that has changed, which I'd normally do, I think I'd start the Deathwing Knights on the board as a deterrent for him charging me, because they're defensive strats. There's lots of defensive strats for them to protect them.
Yep.
And I think I'd need them to anchor down those positions and basically protect all the guns. So it's going to be... Are
you going to put anything to strategic reserve?
No, not in this game. It'll all start on the board.
A full deployment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very nice. And just describe your deployment for us. You're going to spread yourself across it in a quarter. How are you going to do it?
So I think the Land Speeders, the Talonmaster, Samael, and the Inceptors all grouped together as a castle, which will be zoned out by the Incursors, Scouts, and the Deathwing Knights. So the Deathwing Knights will hug the castle tight, so he can't get a charge into the squishy shooting units without getting through those first. And then I'll use the Scouts and Incursors to then zone out the remaining areas that I need to in the early game.
Okay. Nice.
And the unit of Ravenwing bikes I could also throw away because they're quite cheap to either deny a point or really push out my zoning.
I like it, mate. No, I like it. I think it's good because I think if you'd have gone for something like engage in all fronts, which is like most people just auto pick, I think you'd have really stretched yourself too thin. So I really like the way you've thought about this list, how he wants to play. And ultimately, coming out here with an 86 prediction, that's not bad. So it's going to be interesting to find out how he wants to play this mission, and to see if he's going to predict this and if Joe can counter it.
Right? It's going to be interesting.
So we're going to head over to Joe now, and Jack, I'm going to ask you to please turn off your headset so you can't hear what me and Joe are talking about, and then I'll give you a WhatsApp again to join back in the call, mate. Okay?
Okay, great. Speak to you soon.
Right, Joe, are you ready for this?
As ready as I'll ever be.
As ready as you ever be. So we've gone through the mission, and just to recap for you, it's hold 2, hold more. Okay, so it's hold 2 or hold 3 or hold more on the primary. The secondary is obviously where you have to try and hold objectives in your opponent's territory. Okay. But what I would like you to do first of all is go over your list very briefly for the listeners.
Okay, so my list is a single battalion and a patrol.
Okay.
It's all one Colt. Now, I literally had the list in front of me, and now I've managed to close it. Here we are. It is all the bladed cog. I've got the bladed cog basically gives you +1 to invulnerable save if you already have it, or you get a 6+ invulnerable save if you don't have one.
Nice.
I've got an Acolyte Icon Ward, a Patriarch, a Primus, four squads of 10 Acolyte hybrids, all with Roxors, a unit of 9 Aberrants, a unit of 8 Aberrants, and they've all got Power Picks and Rending Claws, and a Kellamorph. And then in the patrol, I've got a Jackal Alphas, a Magus, 2 squads of 5 Acolyte hybrids, just very basic units, another Kellamorph, and then 2 units of 5 Atalan Jackals with demolition charges.
So 1 or 2 units of the Jackals?
2 units of 5.
2 units of 5. And when you said all the Acolytes have Roxors, you mean 4 out of the 10 have them?
Yeah, there's 4 out of 10. And then there is also, in the 10-man squads, I've got a banner which gives them reroll 1s to hit.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right, so what do you think then Jack is going to take against you in
Okay,
terms of secondaries?
So I had to think about it. My first guess is going to be assassinate.
Okay.
Because I have 7 characters in my list.
Okay.
And obviously my list has to go to him, so I have to be quite aggressive with it.
Okay.
So that they could, and my army's quite soft and squidgy, so I reckon that he's going to try and go for those.
Okay, right.
I've got to get out there.
Okay, and what else do you think he's going to take?
I'm guessing while we stand, we fight.
Okay, and why is that?
Because he's got the two lieutenants on the land speeders, the Talon Masters, yep, and he's obviously got Samael on his bike,
yep.
on his jet bike, and those are the 3 most expensive single models in his army.
Okay, yep.
They're quite durable. They're quite fast. They can be hidden, and if they do get in trouble, you can run away with them.
Yeah. Or fly away with them.
Or fly away with them. And because they're Raven Wing, if they advance, they get a 4+ invuln. That's correct, isn't it?
There's something like that. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. They're quite durable. They can hold themselves up in a fight, in combat, and they just have all of the guns, so they don't really have to commit.
Yeah,
too much.
They don't have to commit at close range. Yeah, they can just sort of pepper you from distance. Okay, and what is your third prediction of his secondaries?
My third prediction is attrition, killing more each turn.
So grind them down.
Grind them down. That's the one. Yep. Yeah.
Why
So grind them down because my units across the board all have a 5+ save and a 6+ invulnerable save. Everything in my army, apart from the 2 units of aberrants, is toughness 3. So all of his plasma weapons, all those assault cannons on the Talon Masters, like majoritively, he's going to be wounding me on 2s, and then the rest of it's going to be wounding me on 3s. And his list has got a high amount of firepower coming out of it, and in combat, he's just gets a ridiculous amount of attack. So if he does it well, picks up a couple of characters one turn, then he can get the kill more, and then another turn pick up a couple of units of acolytes. And if he manages it correctly, he can probably kill more quite well. And because his army is so much more resilient, I have to concentrate more of my energy on killing like a couple units a turn at best.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what are you going to limit him to in terms of... Well, actually, I'm not going to ask you that just yet.
Yeah.
What secondaries are you going to take?
So I'm going to take engage in all fronts.
Yeah.
Because obviously my army can deep strike and get around very quickly. It can be everywhere if needed to.
And how many points are you going to score on that?
I'm going to say 10.
Okay.
On that one.
Are you going to be able to get a unit turn 1 into one of the other quarters?
I'm currently on the table about keeping one of my units there, but what I can do is advance one of my units because it's what is it 12?
You've got 12 inches to cross with the entire unit.
I'm probably not going to get it turn 1.
No.
But there'll be 2, maybe 3 turns where I'm going to be getting 3 points, I reckon.
Okay. So we'll keep it at, 9 then, do you think?
Yeah, we'll go 9.
Okay. Then in terms of your second one, what's that going to be?
It's going to be deploy scramblers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to... I've got... It's something that he can't really control or stop me, and he hasn't got anything that I know of that stops my deep strikers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got the 2 5-man units, which are quite small, got a very small area, which are in my list for doing this secondary and for getting engaged in all fronts. So turn
yeah.
1, I can have one of my bigger units do an action in my deployment zone.
Yep.
Turn 2, I can either bring a unit into no man's land, or have one of the units that are already on the table. They can do an action if they're not in a position where they can do combat. And then turn 3, I've got 2 5-man units that I can bring down his deployment zone. Because if he's trying to stop me, then he's basically got to backline most of his army to screen me out.
Yeah. Okay.
But then I obviously have an option within my list, a stratagem, where I can return units to the shadows. So turn 2, if he's screening me out, I'm going to return a unit now and then bring them in late game.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your third option?
My third option I've gone for is bring it down.
Okay.
I did think about assassinate because he's got a lot of characters, but they're incredibly strong. His list doesn't give up a huge amount of other secondaries, but obviously with the use of my bikes and my kelemorphs, and with the use of my Primus, who can pick 3 units and give Bubbles a reroll, either reroll to hit, or it's reroll all wounds or reroll wound rolls of 1.
Yeah, so your warlord trait allows you to pick an enemy unit, which will obviously be the 3 land speeders, because it will work on all of them, and you'll reroll all wounds against that unit.
Yeah, and then the 2 Talon Masters, I'd give the reroll wound rolls of 1 against.
So you're only going to get maximum of 10 points against that list?
10 points on that one. And if he wants to protect them, he's got to keep them out of the fight. But with the way my army functions, if I can clear a hole near those, then depending on the order in which I bring my units in, because my guess is that those land speeders are going to be with the Talon Masters and Samael. They're going to be traveling around. So because I can bring my stuff in a particular order, where if I can kill the unit of land speeders first, then that allows me to bring in things like my kelemorphs closer to the Talon Masters to get shots on them.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can use the bikes to clear a wall, clear a screen, then bring other units in closer to attack those.
Okay. All right. So what are you going to put into strategic reserve?
So I don't have to put anything in strategic reserve, but I can put stuff in deep strike.
Yeah, what's going in deep strike?
So in deep strike is my Primus, my 2 units of Aberrants, my 2 Kelemorphs, the Jacko Alphas, the 2 units of bikes, and the 2 5-man squads.
Okay.
Which is quite a lot, but I still have the 4 units of acolytes on the table, the Icon Ward, who's giving the Bubble of Feel No Pain, the Patriarch that's giving all my units in 6 Fearless.
Yep.
And I've also got the Magus on there for psychic abilities as well. So he can affect nearby units to give me. Not that it matters in this matchup, but I can also get things like Deny the Witch. But he tends to stay on because I can do smites and use psychic powers to advance and charge.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and what's going to be your prediction in terms of how many points you think he'll score against you on Assassinate?
On Assassinate, I don't want to say that he's going to get max points. I'm going to say 12.
Okay.
12.
And then what about while we stand, we fight?
It'll be, depending on how he plays them, it'll be 5 to 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about grind them down?
Grind them down, I'll say it's 3 points a turn, isn't it? So
yeah.
9.
You reckon 9? Okay.
9, yeah.
Okay. And what's going to be your rough game plan on the primary? So obviously it's hold 2 or hold 3.
Yeah.
Talk us through turn 2. How many points do you think you're going to get and why?
I'm going to get 10, I
Okay.
reckon. Yeah. Depending on who goes first is obviously the big swinger on that one.
So do
But
you want first turn?
ideally, I want first turn, yes.
You want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My Primus keeping...
Why do you want to go first?
I'd need to reduce the amount of firepower he's putting in on me, and I'm guessing that he's going to be putting those Terminators in Deep Strike with the Ancient, and probably the Inceptors.
Okay.
So I want to use my units kind of to screen him out, so those Terminators don't have very good options, and
Okay.
I need to get the hit on him first before he gets the hit on me, in terms of me bringing my aberrants and my bomb bikes in.
So you're going to push on to the 3 objectives, are you? Turn 1.
Yeah. I could push onto the 3 units in my half of the table, and using the Patriarch, he can keep them in place with this fearless bubble.
Yeah. Are you going to be stacking multiple units on these objectives? Because some might be out in the open, some might be obscured.
I'm going to have, particularly the Patriarch, he's going to be in the middle with a unit. The Magus can go off to one side with another unit, and then I can have 2 units of Acolytes on another objective. So he's really going to have to really apply pressure early game to cause me some problems.
Okay. And then, so what about turn 2? How many points are you going to get? Oh, sorry, turn 3.
Turn 3, if it all goes well, I'm aiming for 10.
Okay. What about turn 4?
Turn 4, depending how it goes, I'm guessing it's going to be 5 or 10. I'm going to be optimistic and go 10. That's my goal. If I can score 10 every turn.
Okay. And then what about turn 5?
I will throw in a 5 there.
5.
A 5, just because of his sheer resilience, and that's always going to cause an issue for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, mate. So, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of your game plan? Anything that you think is going to help you win this game?
Yeah. Going first would be a big help for sure.
Okay.
And I'd say I need, if he puts his infiltrators, his 2 units of Incursus and Scouts out too far, then my goal is basically to get an advance on charge on those with 2 units of Acolytes. If I can clear him off his objectives in the mid-table, which I reckon that's where his stuff's going to sit, or he's going to try and screen me out with those. And if I can clear those out early game, then that kind of clears me some drop space, but also screens out the mid-board to stop his Terminators deep striking in. Because I know they can deep strike really close with his Raven Wing units using a stratagem. So I need to prevent him from being able to get all those units into the middle. But if he does that, then he does leave himself open for me to hit back with aberrants and bikes.
Okay, all right. So we're going to wrap that up, and then we're going to join Jack with both of you now, and then we're going to go over how this game's going to turn out. Because there's a few roles that need to find out who's going first, who's going to drop the first unit, where certain key units can be placed. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Jack and Joe for the fight. This podcast is sponsored by Foreground Publishing, who are the leading designers and manufacturers of tabletop pre-painted terrain. Check out the VT Terrain series, which is perfect for competitive 40k games. Just unbox, build, and play. So welcome back from the break, and I'm now joined with Joe and Jack, ready for the fight. So you guys have heard the secondaries. You know what they're predicting each, and you also know what secondaries they're going to take. They've shared their lists, and for a roundup of all of this, head over to the blog post www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/ S2EP6, and you can check out both lists. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. And by the way, I found this absolutely fascinating, listening to both how you think each other is going to play. It's been really
spot on.
It's been really interesting, I tell you. So, there's one really important roll-off. The most important roll-off in the game. And that is, who's going to be the attacker and defender? Now, as our boards are pretty symmetrical, it doesn't really matter what side you pick. So the first person on a 1, 2, 3, Jack, you get to decide whether you're dropping the first or second unit, or Joe can drop the first or second unit. Okay, and on a 4, 5, 6, Joe, you're going to pick. All right, are you ready?
Yep.
It is a 6. Jack, Joe, are you going to be dropping your first blip, or are you going to make Jack drop his first unit?
I'm going to make Jack drop his first unit.
Okay, Jack, what unit are you deploying, and where are you deploying it roughly?
I'm probably going to drop a unit of incursors near one of the flanking objectives in my deployment zone.
Okay, how far forward are you going to be?
They'll probably be screening out the left-hand side of the board, so they'll be 9 inches from the side.
Yep.
And they'll probably be in my deployment zone.
Okay.
Hiding in cover.
Okay. So they're literally on the front line, near that objective, 9 inches away from the edge, okay?
Yeah.
And obviously, Joe, it doesn't actually really matter where you deploy, because you're just going to be putting blips down in different places.
I'm going to put a blip on my centre objective.
Okay, cool. Jack,
Go.
describe where your next unit of incursors is going to go.
I'm going to mirror to the other side, so a unit of incursors hidden near the other flanking objective.
Okay. All right. What about your scouts? Where are they going?
I think the scouts will deploy near centre board, hidden out of line of sight, and
Okay.
away from an inch away from a ruin to screen out that front.
Okay. All right. Very nice. So then obviously the rest, where are you going to put the rest of your castle, Jack?
So the Deathwing Knights will be in this like a semicircle formation around my backfield objective with the banner, and then the 2 Talonmaster Samael and the unit of land speeders and the Inceptors will all deploy behind them.
Okay, where's the Inceptors going?
The Inceptors are going there as well.
Okay. So you basically got your scouts, then your Terminators, so literally right in the middle, incursors on each flank. Where's your bikes going?
The bikes is a good question. I'll be looking at see where the blips are and putting the bikes to one of the sides to start flanking around the board. Probably to the lighter side of where the blips are going to be.
Okay, cool. That's a pretty fair enough observation. Right, Joe, it doesn't really matter where you put your blips down, because obviously you can remove them about anyway. So the most important roll-off now... Go on.
Quick word. Did Jack say that he's putting the incursors in no man's land, or actually in his deployment zone, but near those objectives?
They're going to be in the nearest blocking line of sight near those objectives, but in a position to block out and screen the corners of my deployment zone.
Okay.
Now, one thing I need to tell you both is obviously the secondaries, so I'm going to reveal them both to you simultaneously, okay? Jack, you predicted that Joe would get, or go for, engage on all fronts, deploy scramblers, and raise the banners.
Yep.
And in fact, Joe is gone for deploy scramblers, engage on all fronts, and he's gone for bring it down.
Okay.
It's a bold move, Cotton, isn't it?
Yeah, so bring it down is...
your vehicles.
10 points, yeah.
Yeah. Then Joe, you predicted that Jack would go for assassinate, grind them down, and while we stand, we fight. But Jack actually went for grind them down, assassinate, and also raise the banners.
Oh.
Okay?
Yep.
So you're both 2 for 2 in terms of your predictions.
Yep.
It's not bad. Now, the most important roll-off is who is going to go first. So you've both told me whether you would like first or second turn, and I'm going to ask you to honour that depending on this roll-off, okay?
Yep.
So the winner, so again, 1, 2, 3, Jack, it's your decision. 4, 5, 6, Joe, it's yours. It's a 3. Jack, are you going first or second?
I'm going second.
You're going second.
Ooh. Interesting.
Joe wanted to go first.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Joe was always going first no matter what, based on your two obviously decisions earlier. Now, here's the interesting thing. Joe, how do you feel about
Yes.
Jack's deployment in regards to what you predicted?
It's different. It's very different. He's gone a lot more defensive.
Okay.
A lot more defensive than I thought, because I thought the Terminators would go into deep strike and then he'd kind of hammer into the middle with all of the bikes and the land speeders to kind of clear me off those central objectives, and then he's got a good place to bring the Terminators in, like close to my central lines.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jack, is there any surprises from what Joe said?
I'm surprised you took Bring It Down, because 2 of those land speeders are characters, so they are quite difficult to get to. So that was a surprise for me. I thought it definitely would have gone for Raise the Banners with the number of units he has available at his disposal.
Yeah, I do. Although I do have a lot of units at my disposal, the issue with banners is it's so easy for you with your maneuverability and your kill ability, is that you could quite easily take my banners away from me. And then if I was doing
Don't take
that,
my banners away from me.
I know he'd come in, he'd kick them to the ground and stomp on them, and I need to be constantly pushing and applying pressure.
Okay.
On him. So having a land speeder character just nip off to my back lines, or a unit of Terminators kind of drop in behind me whilst I'm busy pushing into his area, it causes a problem. So if I'm having to leave these really weak units, although they are raising the banners, but I still need to be holding objectives, and if I raise a banner and then move into his half of the table, it's quite easy for him to go and take one of my back lines off me.
Yeah. Now, what was really interesting for me was, Jack, your prediction was pretty spot on in terms of your way that you think the primary is going to go, compared to how then Joe, basically your both of your predictions ties up very, very well. Okay, so Jack, if correct me at any point if I was wrong, you think that turn 2 you're going to get 5 points, turn 3 you're going to get 5 points because you're going to defend for literally 2 turns until turn 3, and then turns 4 and 5 you're going to get 15 points apiece because you're going to get the hold and the hold more. Okay?
Yep.
Because you're going second, which is you've got the chance to kick Joe off those objectives, haven't you?
Yeah.
Joe, you said you would get 10 points turn 2, 10 points turn 3, 10 points turn 4, and 5 points turn 5.
Yeah.
Which I agree with both of you, actually. Roughly, give or take some dice rolls here or there. So, Joe, you finished your primary on 35 points.
Yeah.
Jack, you finished yours on 40. Do you think that's a fair enough assumption for both of you?
Yep.
My only thinking is that I don't see Joe having enough units available in turn 5 to hold 2 objectives to get the 5 points. I think that may be a bit of a struggle.
Okay.
Because it is the mission where you got to hold 2 and hold 3 for those 5 and 10s. So I think that will start to become a real issue late game, because we know that the Genestealer cult is a early game pressure army, but they haven't got the staying power. So I think it may get tight towards the end of the game for Joe to pick up those last 5 on that primary.
Do you think he'll ever be in a situation where he will get hold more?
Yes, yeah. I think in turn 2, maybe turn 3. So it probably equals out.
So you reckon Joe will get hold more, turns 2 and 3, and then hold 5 points in turn 4, and then 0 on turns 5, yeah?
Yeah,
Either way, whichever way we swing that, that's roughly 35 points.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So give or take, and I think you're right. I think it's a really valid point. I think, being susceptible for the fact that your game plan's been to play defensively and only score 5 points, then obviously it gives Joe the chance then to get the hold more turns 2 and 3 while you're just getting the 5 points turns 2 and 3. Yeah?
Yeah.
Would you agree with those points, Joe?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, I've got that early game board coverage, which is really strong for my list, but I don't have that staying power. So I have to commit a lot of my forces to fight him, to just to keep him busy and kill him. And if I hit hard and I hit well, it'll go really well. But if I have some bad dice rolls, don't do a certain amount of damage, then he can do a breakout late game.
Yeah.
And it can kind of slide away. So it's all like, yeah, I'd say I'm in agreement to that.
Okay, cool. So then on the secondaries, Jack, you predicted for grind them down, you would get 12 points.
Yep.
And Joe, you predicted that Jack would get 9 points.
Yeah.
Why do you think that Jack's only going to get the kill more for 3 turns and not 4 turns?
I think turn 1, I can stop him quite well. So depending on when I decide to do the big push.
How are you going to do that? Turns 1.
Turn 1, I can, if I keep hold my acolytes and things and my characters back behind buildings in like behind line of sight blocking stuff. And he plays defensively, using the terrain. My models are quite small, so as long as I can pack him into buildings, he's not going to be able to shoot much. And if I don't commit too hard to him being able to pick up 2 or 3 units from his deployment zone with just shooting, then it'll be quite hard. Because if I say, for instance, I get out there, I get a good advance, I get a good charge on, and I take out those scouts. I don't want to be putting myself in a position where he's got lots of good angles on me.
Yeah, Jack, any sort of counterpoints to that?
I think that my counter would be, if Joe spent defensive turn 1, I've got the 5-man unit of bikes, which I could spend a CP to move, advance, shoot and charge. So they'll be moving 20 up the board. So they should either get a line of sight on something or have a reasonable charge on a unit, I would have thought. Especially going second, if I know I only need to make the 1 kill, I probably would sacrifice that unit of bikes to go and get me the 3 points.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, yeah.
But it's a question mark. If Joe wanted to play defensive in that first turn and wait for his reinforcements to come down turn 2 and 3, he potentially could deny those points on the first turn.
Okay,
yeah,
so I mean, again, depending if you want to take that risk, Jack, and obviously the objectives are close enough to a building which you could have a character on the objective or within 3 of it, and that same character within 3 of a unit, which is then behind obscuring cover. So you could, string characters out to make sure that they can't be shot. And then, Jack, you are going to obviously have to throw away some units of those bikes, which you might rely on later, those, for screening, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. All right. I mean, whether you're getting 9 or 12, there or thereabouts, as we probably know, but I think you're pretty both close than that. You both predicted that Jack would get 12 points for Assassinate. So, Jack, you've got 12 points for Assassinate, okay?
Cool.
Then, while we stand, we So then the other one you said was raise the banners, and you've said you're going to get 12 points. Joe, would you agree that Jack's going to get 12 points for raise the banners, or can you stop him from doing that? That does require Jack to have 3 banners up for 4 turns.
Yep.
With no end game scoring, okay? Or obviously he could have 2 banners up for a few of the turns and then get maybe 2 or 3 late game. Do you think Jack's going to get 12 points?
I'd say between 10 and 12, depending on how he screens, because I've got so much OBSEC in my list. If I could literally just slip that one guy in, then I can just pick that one of those objectives off of him, which means he's not going to score it, because I've got such an aggressive deep striking force that he can kill stuff. Or if he kills a bunch of acolytes, I can spend 1 CP to bring D6 models back to the unit. So even if I'm not near that objective at the start of my turn, I can then just bring them back and kind of string them out, and then just kind of leave them near him on that objective. Yeah. So that means that although he's got the banner up, I can literally take it down at the beginning of my movement phase and then not have to worry about it.
Okay, cool. Right, so, Joe, this is actually really interesting because, Jack, you've predicted that Joe will get 8 to 9 points on engaged in all fronts, I think we said?
Yeah.
And Joe said he would also get 9 points, so I'm happy to say Joe gets 9 points there.
Yeah.
Deploy scramblers, you both said you'd easily get 10.
Yep.
Bring it down. Joe, you think you're going to get 10 points. Jack, how do you feel about that? What does that require Joe to do? Kill all 3...
The 3 land speeders and the 2 Talamasters.
Now, Joe will be re-rolling all wounds against those 3 land speeders.
That's fine. The 3 land speeders, if he gets in combat with them, will go down. That's fine. It's the Talamasters. But first of all, the way I plan to play the game, you'll have to break the Deathwing Terminators first, which I think the Aberrants will struggle to do.
Yeah.
But I think over the course of the game, the 3 land speeders will go down, but I don't think the Talamasters will go. So I think it'd be more like 6 points.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yep. Joe, anything to counter that?
Well, I think I can use a bike squad to cause some serious hurt on those Terminators and really like shake that screen before I kind of go in, because it's going to be 5d6 strength 8 hits. I know he gets that invulnerable save, but
I've also, and because I haven't put the Terminators in Deep Strike, I invest all my CP in defensive strats on the Deathwing.
Like transhuman or whatever, yeah.
I've got transhuman. I can make them toughness 5, -1 to wound. So they've got. I think it'd be tough to get through the Deathwing. Yeah, the land speeders will definitely go down because they'll be in front of the Talamasters.
But the how much CP does it cost you to do all that? Because obviously I can bring in a bike squad and kind of draw all those CP out of you in my shooting phase, and then I can send the Aberrants into combat and kind of draw that CP out of you in the combat phase, and then you're kind of starved of CP later on in the game.
What strength did Aberrant swing at?
Strength 5.
So I could spend 1 CP to make my Terminators toughness 5, and then spend another CP to make a -1 to wound.
Yeah.
So be wounding them on 5s.
Yeah.
I can use the 2 CP on transhuman in the shooting phase, then use those 2 CP. So that's 4 CP I'd have to spend. And I start the game with 11, regenning on 5s.
That's not bad.
Okay.
And then I'd spend 3 to interrupt and swing at the second unit of Aberrants potentially. But it's a very tough screen to get through.
I would agree with that.
And if you get through them, you tag the unit of 3 land speeders and not the Talamasters.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you kill the 3 land speeders, but I don't think you'll ever get a position to get to the Talamasters, because then they'll run away and you won't be able to catch them.
So here's the interesting thing. We can look at it like this. Jack, we're saying you're getting 40 for the primary, and Joe, you're getting 35. Okay, we both agreed on that. Then Jack, we agreed that you're going to get 9 points for grind them down, and I've gone a little bit conservative there. Okay. I've given you 12 points for assassinate and 10 points for raise the banners.
Yep.
Because I like Joe's counterpoints there. All right.
Yep.
So your final score is 81 points.
Cool.
All right. So we predicted a little bit higher earlier, but I think Joe's made some pretty good comments, and we brought that score down a little bit. Okay. So always better to be on the conservative side, right?
It's a very good point about the OBSEC units and just nipping out and just taking a cheeky banner down. So yeah, that's fair. Good play.
Then we've got Joe's getting 35 for the primary, and then engage in all fronts. We've gone for 9 points. Okay. Deploy scramblers, 10 points, and bring it down. I'm giving Joe 8 points. Somewhere in between the 10 and the 6. I think that was fair.
Cool.
That means, Joe, you're going to finish this game on 72.
Yeah, that sounds about fair.
So this is a win to Jack.
Yeah.
By
narrow one.
I mean, obviously we haven't included dice rolls and swings and things, but there's a 9-point margin there. And the thing is here, there's not really much Joe can do about it, because even if he gets two more points out of bring it down, that takes him up to 74. And even if Joe gets 1 more engage in all fronts, then that takes him up to about 76. So he's still 5 points behind. Now, here's the interesting thing, because obviously you can't get any more for deploy scramblers and you can't get any more for bring it down. I think, Joe, you could have played this mission differently, and I think you could have been in a much stronger position. I think, knowing that Jack is going to take grind them down, and he's also going to take assassinate, I think you should have took while we stand, we fight.
That is a secondary I have considered taking in my list.
I would have gone second against Jack. You won the roll-off, right?
Yeah.
I would have gone second. The threat of the Genestealer cult.
Oh no! Jack won the roll-off, and he chose to go second.
He chose to go second. So I would have, again, that would have still been my prerogative anyway. It would have been slightly harder, obviously. But if you could have gone second, and you could have gone for while we stand, we fight, I think the threat of the aberrants and everything dropping down in turn 2 or 3 would have meant that Jack was constantly screening back as much as he possibly can. And if I was you, Joe, I would have null deployed as much as I could to stop Jack from getting as much grind to them down as possible. In going second, you can just push those units onto those objectives using characters. But then by the time Jack realised that because you don't actually need to use your Kelemorphs or anything like that, you can literally keep them in the back of your table. Just to literally deny, you don't need the Magus anywhere near it. All these characters can be sitting back on objectives within 3 of a unit, within 3 of a objective, and also then getting obscuring. So I think you could have played this super cagey against a list that. But I think the problem was, Joe, you predicted Jack would have all of his, and your game plan would have been good, but Jack completely counter-deployed you by putting all of his units down on the table.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes. I kind of expected he'd do what you expect everyone to do with that list, and that is always a case of Ravenwing on the table, Green Marines if they've got them on the table, and then all the Deathwing in Deep Strike to come in and do that kind of hammer blow.
Yeah. No, I think that's... Go on, Jack.
Yeah, because that's obviously the preferred way I like to play them, but I knew, because I don't know where the aberrants are going to be, so I want that Deathwing to swing at the most valuable target on the table. And if I can't predict where it's going to be, or if you went second and I had to deep strike first, means that I could never get them in the right position. So I think it was a big risk if I put them in deep strike. A, you could either zone them out, or B, I'd never get the preferred charge with them and have to waste them and make them out of position. So I thought I'd have to go defensive with them in this game.
Yeah, that's what I said to Steve, is that like if I got to go first against you and they were in deep strike, then I'd make sure that they weren't coming in a good place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, I think this has been super valuable. I think it's been really interesting. But the way that you've both described how you were going to deploy, you won and lost this game, Joe, literally in the deployment phase, because you had to predict what Jack was going to do after your secondaries were already picked. And this is why the interaction of the secondary picks is so important, and why we practice it in our academy group every single week. So the game we've just played is something that we do every single week on our academy, and we come up with a scenario, a list, and obviously that's something that if you want to join the academy, obviously you guys can get well versed in practice, because you really do hone your skills by practicing and getting those repetitions in, whether it's theoretical like what we've just done here, or actually obviously on the tabletop. So Jack, Joe, have you enjoyed this one?
Yep, it's been really informative. I'd like to get Jack down so we can play it out now knowing it. Although it's always terrifying putting the Genestealer coat on the table versus Marines, because it's an uphill struggle from the beginning. But knowing what I know now, I think I could make a bit of a run of it.
Have you guys found this useful, Jack?
No, yeah, it's definitely it's been a really helpful exercise for me, just to talk through some theory hammer, and then how, and not knowing what the other are going to do, just kind of see how my opponent thinks I'm going to play it to how I think that I'm going to approach that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that interaction.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think we did this pretty fairly in terms of points and everything. So, and again, we came to a pretty common consensus. And obviously, yeah, dice can throw things off, but especially the way I've been rolling recently. One game I'm rolling super hot, and the next bit is absolute trash. But anyway, that obviously we got to take that out in terms of considerations when we're thinking we want to play a game that is something that we can repeatedly do. But I think the biggest mistake people make is they either just auto take secondaries without even thinking about them because it worked for them well in the last game, or they haven't considered their opponent's list. But the most important thing that people aren't considering is how their opponent is going to play against them. It's like that one next step that people aren't thinking about, which is why people lose the games at this stage, I think. Any other thoughts, guys, you want to conclude it with?
No, it's been really good. It's really informative, because like when you play test, you literally you think your secondaries, you put your models down, and you play. But and when you play test, you tend to do all your talking after the game. But I think it's really good and really informative to actually have that discussion hours, days before you play, and go through what you think is going to happen, what your predictions are, and really kind of creating a game plan, or changing your game plan because your opponent or potential opponents might play differently to how you originally think, and you don't want to go into it, throw it down, and then completely be caught off guard.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, guys, Jack, have you got anything last to say or add?
I think it'd be really interesting to actually play this game out and see how our decisions may change, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I'll give you both chance to pick different secondaries. Right, anyway, guys, thanks so much again, and we're going to take a quick short break, and I'll be back with you very shortly. Now remember, if you do enjoy the Competitive 40k podcast, please leave us a review over on iTunes and give us that 5-star review, and maybe we'll give you a shout out next week. So again, thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and make sure you have subscribed to the channel so you get notified every single time we release an episode, and I'll see you next week. Take care.